This is a unique gun. It's 12 gauge over and under. It's actually a Remington. It would be known as a Remington SPR310. It's a Spartan, which means that it's actually Russian. It was manufactured in the Baikal. Forgive me, someone out there please correct my pronunciation. I'll spell it. B-A-I-K-A-L. Baikal? Baikal? I don't know. Either way, Russia. And it's from Spartan Gunworks, Remington. It's a Russian over and under shotgun that Remington's put their name on, from what I understand. It's stamped here, Spartan, Sharps, Florida. There's mixed reviews on it. It seems like anybody that's out there that knows their over and under shotguns for skeet and stuff like that, they really clown on this gun a lot. And then again, it seems like anybody that is just looking for a value-priced over and under shotgun to shoot with really likes them. So, you know, I don't know, kind of like a high point, maybe. Anyone that's really a shooter isn't going to have a high point for anything other than a gun to put in a, in case shit happens, box in the woods. That doesn't mean that high point isn't a decent gun. I mean, they shoot. They, as far as I know, they're reliable. It's a good design. They're heavy. But you get your snobs that they're going to hate on something just because it's inexpensive, and they're snobs about it. And whereas I wouldn't prefer a high point, I'm not a snob about it. It's a decent gun, and by God, if that's all you can afford, buy it. Buy one. Just get a gun. Just protect yourself. Learn how to. You're much better off buying a high point and spending the rest of the money that you saved from buying that M&P or that 1911 or your SIG or your FN, whatever. You buy a high point, turn around and spend that money on training. You will be much better off than having a really nice gun and no training. So anyways, this one's in, the way it's designed is whenever you cock it, you pull the trigger once and it will fire the bottom barrel. You pull the trigger, let it reset, pull it again, it'll fire the top barrel. You also have the option to, after you've cocked it, which it's hammerless design, so by cocking it, it means you're breaking the action open and then closing it. You can take the trigger and push it forward until it clicks, and then it swaps barrels. It will fire the top one first and the bottom one second. Now, what's in here, because the top, they were thinking that maybe the firing pin was just needed to be filed or something like that. The top one wasn't firing all the time. There's nothing wrong with the firing pin. It's just not, the sear's not resetting all the time. And so, I'm going to pull it apart. Just as far as we need. I'm not going to try and, unless I have to, I'm not going to get into a full teardown, but you guys are going to come along on the ride and see where it goes, and we're going to pull some apart, we're going to fix it, and yeah, there it is. So anyways, oh yeah, by the way, Ranger Up t-shirts, I just shot a video of the unboxing of them. Man, they're great. The t-shirts run, I don't know, I'm thinking from 20 to 30 bucks. You go to rangerup.com, go to their website, anything that you see on their website, as far as the t-shirts, you're going to be $5 cheaper than their website advertised price purchasing through me. Really, really good shirts. Especially if you're a gun enthusiast or just a patriotic American. Look, and also if you go there, make sure you check out the liquid metal signs. They're expensive, but they're badass. They're really, really neat signs. There's something that, if you had a man cave or something like that, or you were a Marine or you retired military, there's a lot of signs for like unit signs and things like that. So it's something you put in your man cave or in your bar. Really neat stuff. First thing we're going to do, right here, we'll remove our forearm. got a little button there. Not a button, but a lever you can pull. And that will slip up and off. If you own one of these guns, you pretty much already know that, because you got to be able to pull the thing apart. I'll pull it apart. I'm gonna just let it break, and with your forearm off, that's what holds the barrels on. So anyways, there's that. Nice jeweling. And I'm going to set that over here. And so what I'm going to do for now, I'm going to take the Lyman gun vise here, and I'm going to adjust it in. Get all this stuff situated. There we go. Now that's set up to where it'll hold just the action. So the next thing we're going to do I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attempt to remove my trigger guard and my bottom metal. Screwdrivers. Need a thinner one. Thinner than that. That is a very thin slot on that screw. Very thin. I'll show you here how this screw looks there. Those there. Now we'll get the buttstock off. Got a Phillips screwdriver. You know how I always like to, I'll try and loosen all of the screws in a particular item before I remove them. Not always the case. Sometimes, like if I don't want the possibility of the screw to fall out or to scratch something or to get bent or cross-threaded, I won't. You know, just something that comes with time, learning the stuff. It's just turning wrenches. I mean, the fact that it's firearms has its own unique blend of circumstances and stuff, but all in all, it's just turning. turning wrenches. And I don't know if it's a flathead. Yep, it's a flathead. Get in your hole. No. Grip that so it can't fall. This is a very versatile gun vise. I just hate that it's plastic. It really limits the amount of torque that you can put on things whenever you're working on them. It's the one complaint that I have with it, is that it's freaking plastic. Still not all the way out. Thought it was. You see how I've got it clamped there, it just holds it. Does an excellent job. There we go. The stock on this could use a little bit of oil, but it's real pretty. I definitely like it. I think it looks good. Here's this. We'll get you guys some close-ups here in a couple of minutes. But for now, what I'm going to do, this tray's removable. So what we'll do, move this in. And now I've got, get the base plate hardware out. You're going to take your trigger guard and it just unthreads. You want to make sure that it's not bent a little bit and is able to scratch this part as it goes over it. And something else you want to be very careful about is right whenever you get to the end of the threads, you want to make sure to hold it completely perpendicular to your work so you don't damage the threads as you come out of there. This screw here, it's got 3 different slots cut. And I've already loosened it. It was a little bit tighter than that, but not much. Okay, bear with me here on this, guys, because this is going to be kind of hard for me to get on film. I'm going to try my best. What I've done is I went ahead and I took the bolt out of the buttstock and I threaded it back in here to give me a little bit of leverage. Granted, I know this is thin, so I'm not grabbing it back here, but just right about here. And then I put my forearm back on and the barrel. That way I can cock this and see the action work. And so that's what we're going to do right now. Going to now watch what happens as I actuate the brake action. See the hammer, and then it's got another hammer over here. These action bars here cock the hammers. Now right up here is the sear there's two sears, two hammers. When you pull the trigger, it pushes up on these sears and releases the hammers. Whenever I close this, let me get it on something here. There we go. Now we're ready to fire, except for the safety being in the way. And run that safety forward, and now the first barrel, what we're going to do, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit better here. We'll try. Sorry about the shakiness. Alright, there we go. We're going to pull the trigger. Right in here's where all the magic happens. Right underneath there, that little thing has to flip in just the right area in order to push the sear up. You look right down there, see at the tip of my finger, that part that juts from the sear, it comes back towards me there. And there's another one right there on the other sear. Those are actually contacted by that black piece in there that is connected to the trigger. So watch as it comes up. Let it go. Now right where my thumb is, that piece, watch it. If it functions properly, it will skip forward when I let off the trigger. There, you see it? Now now it's in position to break the other sear. When this thing isn't firing, that piece there is not skipping forward. It did this time. So now it'll push the other sear up and let it fire. And you see it skip there? What's happening is it's not skipping forward every once in a while, which this thing cantilevers down, and underneath here, right there, you can see is a spring. I believe that spring to be too weak, because that spring is what's responsible for keeping this trigger pushed forward enough to let that drop down. So now after that, what we're going to do is pull this bottom metal off and see if we can replace that spring. And I'll be back and we'll do that. Something I noticed in some of the schematics that I've found for this, it shows this entire back plate being the bottom metal that comes off. On this particular variant, the bottom metal, the bottom plate, is only that big. It does not encompass the trigger area. It's kind of interesting. But anyways, what we're going to do here is I've got this vise set up here. Got the tail and the front supported where I can take a punch and see about tapping that out. All I'm doing is just tapping on it, because these things sometimes have curious little ways that they're installed. And without having there we go. Just had to do a little inspection first. You can never be too careful when you're doing stuff like this. There we go. There's a spring hanging down right there. So, gotta be mindful of stuff like that. There's our bottom metal. We'll give that a good cleaning. This is the spring that I believe is weakened. Right in there is where it seats. Not sits, where it seats. And that wasn't just me being a hick. What we're going to do here is we're going to remove the trigger. And so we need to get those two pins out. The front pin is the actual pin that holds the trigger in. The next pin, I believe, is a limiting pin. Sorry if that was terribly filmed. That'll be the front. Alright. I'm not going to take that other pin out. It's just the front pin. Take your little sear trip or whatever. It needs to be pushed back. You can see that little bar right there? That is, you have to push, alright, you have to push this part off of this bar right here. Actually, that bar's coming right out, so maybe I don't. There we go. Alright. Now let me give you a list of these parts here. Parts that I was just pulling out of there was, this is called the carrier. You've got, of course, the trigger, and then this part here is the trigger bar. The little movable section of it there is called the selector lever. So, trigger bar, selector lever, trigger, carrier, hammers. Right here are our sears, mainsprings. This part right in here is called the interceptor. This part right here is the inertia type triggering lever. Your cocking, these are the bolt plungers, left and right hand. And, well, there you go. That's those parts. So, I'm going to pull this apart, and we're going to be replacing that spring right there. Very, very small pin right there. Or you got to pull that apart Make sure you got a hold of it because there is a spring in there. Okay, it didn't have much tension behind it, but let me show you how small that's how small the pin is. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to beef up the two springs that I talked about. One of the springs fits down right in there, and this right here was the original spring. You see this little guy? Now the one that's laying beside it is the one that I'm going to chop down, and this one is a little bit stiffer than that one. And I've got a standby here. This one is stiffer than both of them that I'm going to possibly switch to if I still don't get my desired effect. What I'm trying to do, I don't want to put too hefty of a spring in there, and so I know that my spring rate's a little bit tougher, and I know that this spring, the old spring, has settled. It's been in there for a while. So what I want to do is I want to cut my new spring just a touch longer than that spring to account for settling and to end up where I get the best of my added spring rate. So what I'll do is, this is not exact science here. I will hold it up, line it up, and then bring my side cutters in. Now once I have my side cutters in and I've got a hold of it there, then I'm going, before I make the cut, what I'll do is take my other spring and I'm going to hold it up next to it, and we'll just see. Now see, by looking at that, that tells me that I might want to go a little bit farther into the spring. Oh, I need to go a little bit farther. I made that cut. I can always make another. I'd rather cut it long. Alright, now you see that is definitely a little long. That's alright. I'll be pulling that back out of there, and I'm going to dress up where I cut it because it'll be burned a little bit. So now we'll take this piece and we're just going to do a little test fit. And what I'm going to do here, now basically I've got a pin through it. To where I can do my testing. Got some burrs on there that I'll get rid of, but that's alright. I think that'll be fine. So now what I'll do is I'm going to go in here, and where I cut that, I'm going to hit that with a cutoff wheel just to make sure I don't have anything protruding. Alright, short that up some. And the part that we cut, we're going to put it down. We want it out of the way. And now this is our little bitty pin that's going to go in there. So it could prove a little tricky to get in there. I've got my trigger down in there just being held. So now we're just going to push that down. And do my best to get it on there just by hand. I don't know that I'll be able to. Well, it is wanting to be cantankerous. See if I can start it in like that on the side. There we go. Okay. Now I'll drop just a little bit of lube in there, and I have not replaced the spring right here. I don't believe that spring needs to be replaced. Just want to have a little bit more power on this spring, and then our spring that goes right down in here, right down there, I'm going to replace it. I polished some of the just pitting and corrosion off the trigger. We're going to put this down in. It's going to go right down in there. Trigger will go like that. You have to get that to go down, slide it back. Something that whenever I was pulling the trigger out, I didn't remove this. I was able to get it out of there, but in order to get this back, get the trigger back in, this really needs to be removed. This piece, for those of you who would like to know, is actually the trigger spring, is what they're calling this. Which is surprising to me that that's what they're calling the trigger spring, but it just goes right on there. Now, to install this is going to drop right down in there. What I was doing is I had to move this piece forward, and that'll let it all fall right down in there. This is the next piece that's going to go in. This is the way that it's going to go, and the trigger pin is going to go through this as well. You're going to have to twist it, and it's going to go down right in the middle, You can come down underneath and help push it up. And it's going to fit on the right, for our purposes here, it's actually going to be closer to us than the trigger. It's going to be right against the trigger there. There's a little recess. I'm going to run my scribe through there and get it all lined up. And then with the scribe in there, lining up the trigger in that piece, I'll go over here to put my pin in. And I'm going to grab my brass hammer because I don't want to mar the end of that pin. Alright. I'm going to use, as you see, you guys are probably now used to me using these primer trays and everything. There we go. I'm going to make sure that everything moves and pivots. We'll go back in here and we'll put our trigger spring in. And it's still got a good curve to it. So we're going to call that good. If it was curved up, had no curve to it at all, we want to rethink using that again. We're going to put a little Loctite on there. We don't have to have much. We just need a little bit where it gets in the threads there. Notice how I'm spinning it backwards. If you haven't seen some of my other videos, if you're trying to get threads started and they don't seem to want to start, spin it the opposite way. Loosen it. Even though it's all the way out, spin it the opposite way to where it actually is being loosened, and you'll feel it. It'll make a little click, a little pop, and what that is it's actually it seating into the threads. There we go. This is a spring that I fabbed up that we're going to run right down in there. Maybe a little bit too long still, but it fits down there, and it will also fit into that hole right there. We'll see if it'll work. Right down in there. First thing you have to do is get it into that divot. Now if you have issues getting this down, you need to make sure that you pull this back, and that will allow you to move this out of the way. And for the record, what I was saying was you're going to need to pull the trigger bar back out of the way so you can move the carrier out of the way of the spring. You want to move the carrier up in the back. You want the carrier to be up over that notch of the trigger bar, because it pivots right here and it will let this part down. You're wanting that right there to be down and out of the way while you put this plate on. Have that on there. You got a notch right there. Push it down and it's got to fit underneath there. Like I said, I may have this a little bit too long. We'll see. And if you notice, that was not a brass hammer. That is a non-marring hammer. This one happens to be snap-on. You don't have to have snap-on to have a decent hammer. Although they really are nice. They're dead blow. I do recommend the dead blow. And you notice I did not put Loctite on this yet, because I'm not all the way down. I'm still up a little bit over here. So you don't want to use the screw by itself to tighten it, because you can warp and bend and strip threads. What I'm doing is I'm just coming down a little bit with the screw, putting a little pressure on it, and I'm just watching. Now I've got some pressure there. I'll tap it again, and I'm just tapping. That's all. There. Right there is the spring that we just put in. Alright. So, we have that all back together now. And we're going to put our barrel back on, our forearm, and I'll put that the buttstock screw in here just for a little leverage, and then we're going to test and see what happens. Alright. Let me go ahead and we'll cock this. As you can tell, I am no skeet shooter. I am not used to manipulating a gun like this. Safety. Now both of those were firing the bottom barrel first. This time, I should be able to fire the top barrel first. Like I say, I'm not used to manipulating these. But, either way, I'd say it's safe to say that this gun is finished up, working, and ready to go. Maybe on the video we'll be able to see where those went. I need to work on that action a little. Doesn't want to open. Have to work on that just a little before I give it back. There we go. Couldn't let those last few rounds go to waste by sitting in that box unfired.